Excellency, good afternoon, sir. My name is Toyosi Akirele Ogushiji. I come from Nigeria. I'm the founder of Personal Now, which is the most used mobile learning platform in my country. I wanted to ask you a question let me go quick to the question.
Yes, please.
Because I'm trying not to be controversial. If we were in Africa, I'll probably ask it in a tougher way. Africa is the country, they describe us often as the young continent. And we've got 54 countries, and in that continent, half of those countries have leaders that are in the realm of their 60s and their 70s. Now we're here discussing education technology, which is hinged on innovation and new deep transformational technologies. How do we, and how do you, people like you as one of the few progressive leaders on the continent, how are you going to commit more to youth inclusion such that you can improve policies that reflect the aspirations of this emerging generation? Because when you think about the fact that the young people of Africa are the ones who put Africa on the map globally. All of this innovation we're talking about is developed by young people like me. However, we don't get a seat at the table. How are you going to make sure that education and innovation is mainstreamed into your policy and your agenda as a country and a continent?
Thank you. Okay, so those two questions, communicating to a team but also to your people to get on board a vision. How do you do that?
I think the function of leadership is to inspire and give hope. I remember at the World Bank, somebody said, you have infected us with human capital development. You have to infect your whole country. You have to let them know that you're not doing this for votes. You have to let them understand the importance of this for the survival of the country itself. You have to let them know that I'm not doing it for myself, for my own children only. In fact, it is an equalizer. It gives the universal key to open doors everywhere. So what I am doing by declaring free quality education for every child in Sierra Leone is actually making sure that we are actually redistributing wealth. What others had appropriated to themselves and used or kept in their pocket, we are putting out by making sure that we pay for all kids. So once now, 5 months after being elected, I declared or launched the free quality education. Every part of the country is benefiting from it. As a poor country, to most of whom, most families have 3 to 4 children in school. When you pay for all of them and you give them textbooks and you provide food for them and uniforms, no, you have to be really ungrateful not to understand what is happening. But when people see the utility and that this is meant for everybody, and that what others had used for themselves, we are putting out there at 21% of our whole budget is allocated to education. They will understand, they will support you, and that is what we are enjoying in Sierra Leone. People, if you ask even the youngest kid on the street about free quality education, they know what it means, and they say this government has brought about this development.
So youth inclusion, it's a young continent, how to get more young people in the decision-making process on the table, as the lady asked.
Especially as it relates to technology and other issues, is to get young people involved. I think the young man who stood, or the man who stood just now, it's a young man. He is in charge of, he sits at the State House, he is in charge of the whole science, technology, and innovation business in Sierra Leone.
Great. Okay, so we have a question here, the gentleman in the second row, and then we'll come to you. But first, the gentleman. Yeah, the translator won't hear otherwise. You have to use the microphone.
Hello. I'm a student from Sierra Leone, and I'm Sierra Leonean. So you're talking about education, and it's really inspiring. But the only thing is, lately there have been some doubts between us Sierra Leoneans and other people around other nations about the quality of our examinations, and I'm about to sit my WAS. So I'm just thinking if there are any plans of yours to reform the way that we're going to be taking our examinations.
Okay, thank you. That's a great question. And the gentleman in the next row, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Busani Bafana. I write for IPS Africa. My question is about your free education. Many countries have tried this free education model. I would like to find out what measures have you put in place to ensure that this is sustainable, and what can the rest of Africa learn from your particular model?
Okay. So first question, education.
Thank you very much.
Exams.
Your concerns are quite legitimate. I've only been in office for about 11 months. I'll be 1 year next month. And definitely we inherited a very bad situation. From examinations to everything in Sierra Leone had gone down the drain. 2 days before I left to come here, the West African Examination Council was actually in Sierra Leone. And my word to them is, I am making efforts to improve education in my country. I hold you responsible for making sure that the integrity of our examination, West African Examination Council, will take care of that. It is a legitimate concern. A lot of things had gone wrong with the process, and it was no longer valued as a certificate. What we are trying to do is to change that narrative. That is what I can say to you, and I'm very happy. I wish you good luck. Yes, and I hope with everything that we are putting into that, we'll be able to make your piece of paper from West Africa valuable around the world.
Thank you.
How
Sustainable.
yes,
Free
sustainable. The free quality education which we launched, actually we had to rush into because African leaders are notoriously known for not delivering on their promises. At the time I took over, maybe not just Africa, even politicians generally around the world. So when I took over in April, our academic year starts in September. It was a very short time to prepare fully for free quality education, taking into consideration the various components. But I had already made a pledge, and for me, like I've said before, quality education for our kids is an existential business for us. There's no hiding about it. There is no, it's not politics. We want to make sure that we have a generation of innovators in Sierra Leone. We want to make sure that we are, again, champions of human capital development, as we have already been recognized. So we are in the process of putting in place all the pillars that will support quality education. I think we will be in place to be an example from which other countries can learn maybe in few years. But we are still in the process of putting our own act together. And maybe the only thing you can learn from us now is to know that we want to lead and to inspire other countries that the world needs education. We think going to school is education, but we've seen how leadership at the international level, which I basically ascribe to lack of education, is leading us into challenges and problems around the world. So the type of education that we want to provide actually has to be holistic. And so when I spoke, we are not limiting. My flagship program is human capital, which means we are taking care of the belly. A hungry teacher is a bad teacher. A hungry student does not listen very well. Learning outcomes, when the teacher is hungry or when the student or pupil is hungry, it's not good, the learning outcomes. In whichever case, the health of the teacher and also the pupil is important. And so for you to be able to stuff, to feed the brain, you have to make sure that the tummy is fed, and that human being in which the tummy and that brain exists is also in good shape. So our human capital definition actually has 3 components: health security, food security, and education, quality education. So for me, and we don't just limit it to that point, you have to also take it to the teachers, quality education. Teachers form an important part of this. We have to make sure that our teachers are well trained and motivated, and we teach what is relevant in the world today, what is relevant to make our kids become marketable, and also contribute not only to global economy, to the global economy, but also to global peace and security, because it is in that milieu that we all have to live peacefully to be able to make the world go forward. So if there's anything to learn from us, it is that holistic approach to education that we are embarking on.
Okay, I'm going to have to go to this side of the room only because I feel bad that I've ignored this side of the room, and then I'll come back. There's a gentleman at the back and then the gentleman here. So 2 questions.
President Bayo, thank you very much for being here today. My name is Lenny Joseph. I'm very similar to the story that you shared. I went to a school without shoes, did not have electricity till I was 12 years old, and I think I do have a very nice pair of shoes right now. But really inspired by you, really inspired by the platform on which you ran to win the presidency. I am coming back to Africa. I have a passion for early childhood education. I grew up in Nigeria. And I can tell you that I have seen the document, the strategy document that was released, I think March 1st, that outlines your full strategy on how you're going to close the gap, including human capital development in Sierra Leone. What I'm curious about is that there was an $8 billion number for the investments required, and I know you already have most of those funds. I'm curious about what kind of engagement you've got from private enterprises as well as the international community in closing that gap to enable you to do what you have in your master plan, which, like I said, is really impressive.
Okay, thank you. And if we can get the mic down here, please. Would you mind answering that question until we get the microphone?
Okay.
Yeah, please.
I think you're talking about a medium-term development plan. We have a gap of about 1.5 billion. Well, if you mean well-meaning people will come to your aid. I'm here telling this story, and I've been not around the world, but to a lot of places. And it is interesting how people are catching up, how we have succeeded to, in fact, at Harvard, at MIT, they are ready to work with us now. At the World Bank and other institutions, the African Development Bank, DFID, and other partners, other countries, and other philanthropic groups are coming to our aid. When you have a good story to tell, and when people can see it through you that you are genuine about developing the human being, they are ready to let go their pennies to help you do that. So I am sure we are going to be able to meet that. I am never scared of the figures because I know I'm catering for human beings. And for me, human beings and figures cannot be compared.
And just to elaborate, you don't exclude private enterprise for that. So there's the foundations, there's philanthropists, there's governments, there's international aid, but there's also the private sector can be part of this journey.
They have to be a part of it because they benefit most. When you give quality education, how many people go into the public sector? You train very good people who go into the private sector and they help. They develop. In fact, now when we talk about development, actually we are talking about also investment. How do you provide an ecosystem that is friendly to investment? That is to make sure that you can train a skillful workforce that is ready for them. If that doesn't exist, they are not going there. So they have to be a part of this, and we are trying to see how we can encourage them. Of course, the private sector business people like to make as much profit, and some of them are not ready to just plow that profit into the, how do we call it, social issues. But I think if we can really structure what we are doing properly, and for them to understand that part of what we do is for their own existence and their success, I think a good private sector will be a part of what we are doing.
Excellent. Okay, gentleman here.
My name is Gerald Pallister. I come from Zimbabwe. I have two questions, got two parts to it. You've come from a vertical career in the military, moving into a horizontal career in politics. The transition from that, Your Excellency, how did that go? And the second part of my question is, one of the problems we have globally, and specifically in Africa, is corruption. Could you please expound a bit about your views and how you will be tackling corruption in your country? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so if I can get a mic, so we've only got 3 minutes left. If I can just get the mic to this lady, this gentleman, and the lady there, and then we'll wrap it up. But first, Your Excellency, if you can answer those two questions for us.
Yeah, I mean, my background is military, and we believe in giving orders and making sure that those orders are executed as we give them. What is helping me is the analogy I've made between when I, as a commander in the military, want to accomplish a particular mission, and I put a few people together to go and accomplish that mission. I don't just send them with the verbal orders. I give them the wherewithal, the tools, the compasses, the food, whatever it takes to accomplish that. I believe that if we want to live in a peaceful world, if we want to live in a world that continues to change, change is inevitable. It is the most consistent part of life. We have to make sure that the future generation, our kids, are given all, not just the marching order, but the tools and the wherewithal, the compasses. And for me, when it relates to education, you want your son, daughter to succeed in the world. It's highly competitive, difficult, full of challenges. What do? You give him or her the best education, a holistic education. I will assure you, mission will be accomplished. Long after you are dead, that son or daughter will be a world leader.
Corruption fighting.
Corruption is a threat to national security. It's a threat to everything we've talked about. It is not good. It chokes off development. So what I have done since coming to office is, one, we have a permanent institution that is independent, which has been there for a very long time, but was never given the political support or the free will to do or execute its mandate of curbing corruption in Sierra Leone. So we were always regarded as one of the corrupt countries, most corrupt countries in the world. What have I done? I've given them the freedom. I've given them the wherewithal to prosecute anybody when that person is found wanting. And in 1 year, they have been able to successfully prosecute almost 100% of their cases, which was never possible before I took over. In addition to that, I have also set up the Commission of Inquiry. That Commission of Inquiry is to force or get those who have been in positions of leadership to give account of their stewardship. That one is ongoing. Everybody has to account for the monies that have been used. And that one has a lot of traction with the people of Sierra Leone. So for me, corruption is not good. Corruption threatens everything, including national security. It chokes off development, which we are impatient for and which we want. And therefore, it is the fight against corruption we have waged. It is a fight we must fight, and it's a fight we have to win.
Okay.